All right, so welcome to our online live class session for week 1 of our entertainment market research class. This is Daniel Sandin, your instructor, and I just want to let everyone know that we are recording tonight's session in order to make the recording available to those of our classmates who could not join us live tonight. So they'll get a chance to review the recording of this session later in the week, and hopefully that will help them just as it helps those who are live here with us. All right, so let me give you the agenda for tonight, and here it is on the screen. So we're going to take a look at the course overview, just an overview of what's coming up in the next 4 weeks and why we're doing this, essentially. And then we will I will review the week 1 topics and concepts with you, sort of based on the readings that we've set aside. So I'll talk briefly about the topics and concepts that are important for this week, and I'll walk us through what the readings and some of the videos are. And then we'll kind of go more specifically into a review of our discussion topic for the week and what my expectations are for the discussion. And then we'll talk about the assignment or the project for week 1. And when I talk about the assignment or the project here, I'm just going to go through it and tell you what I'm looking for and explain it. And I'll try to answer some questions that you may or may not have, things that have come up in the past that I think students sometimes can stumble over. So I'll try to get in front of those things and help you understand what we're looking for here. And then also associated with this project, and only those who are either here live or are listening to the recording are going to know about this, but I'm offering some bonus points on the project. So I'll talk about that when we get there. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, I will summarize all our deliverables for week 1, what's due and when it's due. I'll open for questions if you have them, but if you have them along the way, please feel free to ask. And then I'll leave you at the end with my contact information and my office hours so you know how to contact me outside of this time. All right, so this is an overview of the course, what we're going to cover in each week. So here in week 1, we're sort of laying some foundation for entertainment market research. We're going to review some terminology, review some key data measurements. We'll get sort of a basis for what is it that we're looking at here, what is it that we're studying, and how, for instance, audiences are measured in different areas of entertainment. So a radio audience might be measured differently from a TV audience or from an online audience or, a live event audience. Okay, so all of these different audiences are measured in different ways. And so we'll talk about and we'll review some of how that takes place. All right, so that's week 1. So when we get to week 2, it says media ratings and the evolution. This is the evolution of media ratings. So you're going to get more, dig in a little deeper on how different media ratings are created by the companies that create those ratings and how they developed over time. Things at the beginning, let's say 50, 60 years ago, were done way differently than they are today. And even today, there are measurements that are being updated, that are being improved. In fact, let me give you a quick example here of an article that I found today that is from a couple weeks ago, but this is about Nielsen. Now, Nielsen is one of the companies you'll learn about here because they do so much collecting audience measurements in so many areas of entertainment, TV, radio. They do a lot of online ratings. So, and here it says Nielsen ratings give credit for Facebook, YouTube, and Hulu views. Okay, so this is a development that's just coming up now that Nielsen has said, when we measure essentially video content, and we measure it like on TV and things like that, we're going to now begin to do a better job of adding in, if somebody watched it on Facebook or if somebody watched it on YouTube or on Hulu, those views will be folded in with other ratings to give a more complete picture of how many times this video content has been watched. So I'm not going to read through this article with you, but that's the gist of it. And as I said, here's the date is August 15th. So that's about 2 or 3 weeks ago that this was kind of a development. And I found this in Engadget. So if you'd like to read this, you can find this on Engadget from 2 or 3 weeks ago, 8/15/17, by Mallory Locklear. And I think you'll find this pretty interesting, especially after you watch and read some of the Read and View stuff for week 1. So let me go back now. So I just wanted to give you a quick example of that, that's developing. I mean, those kinds of measures are new and they're developing. And Nielsen and other companies are updating and upgrading their ratings and their measurements of audiences, in real time here. And so for week 2, we want to give you more of a feel, more of a drill down on what media ratings are and how they've developed over time and how they're continuing to develop. So you'll see some of that next week. In week 3, we talk about how content is used for development. And here's what we mean by that. There's all kinds of entertainment content that has been, produced over time. Okay. And when we measure the effectiveness of that content, whether it's music, the effectiveness, the popularity, the numbers of views, the numbers of listeners, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have this content and we measure all these things about it from past content. Well, we can learn a lot from that past content and the measures and the analysis and the evaluation that we do of that previous content in order to develop new content. Okay, so the things that we learned from the past we can use as we develop going forward. And so that's one of the other ways that we use, content and data that we've learned from that content for developing new stuff. So that's week 3. And then in week 4, we talk about how data is used for media buying. And when we talk about media buying, what we're really talking about is buying, time, advertising time in different media outlets. So, buying advertising on TV. If I make, laundry detergent and I want to advertise to consumers, I may want to buy TV, TV ad time. I may want to buy radio ad time. I may want to buy some online advertising. I may want to do some sponsorships and advertise, at some events and things like that. And so we use data to figure out what is the value of the audience that we can reach in these different media outlets. Okay, and the value of that audience is related to how much it costs us to advertise there. And so, you think about sort of the ultimate advertising venue is the annual Super Bowl for the NFL. And those ad times, the 30-second ad costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to run your ad on the Super Bowl because it's such a big audience and it's such a definable audience that it's very, very valuable to those advertisers, and so they're willing to pay, millions and millions of dollars to run their ads on the Super Bowl. But there's a whole lot of other programming that is, aimed at different target markets, target consumer groups in the United States. And so we use data to figure out how big is that audience, how valuable is that audience, how close is that audience to the audience that would buy my products, And so if I'm going to make a media buy, an advertising buy, I need to get a hold of that data and understand how valuable that audience is to me. So that's what we're going to talk about in week 4. So that's an overview of the course. And again, as I said, we have to start sort of from the beginning and lay some foundation of terminology and key data measurements. Before I go into the week 1 stuff, I just want to show you that in this particular course, it's very sort of predictable from week to week how much of your total grade in the course is up for grabs in each week. Well, since there's 4 weeks and there's 100% of your grade, essentially 25% of your grade is up for grabs in any given week. And so here we see the first 3 things on the list are our discussion board for week 1, our test for week 1, and our project for week 1. And you can see that those add up to 25%. And so you can earn up to 25% of your total grade here in week 1. So let's talk about the topics and concepts for this week. And I do this based on the readings that we've set aside and the other materials that we've set aside for you here for week 1. And so the first one is an introduction to audience research. Now, this is in a textbook that I call the Webster textbook. Okay, it's chapter 1, so it's a great place to start. And this is the beginning of sort of laying the foundation of what is audience research. And then the second one here is from the same textbook. It's about audience research and advertising. And so it gives you get this introduction, sort of general introduction to audience research in chapter 1. And then we sort of apply those principles to audience research specifically in advertising to give you an example of how we make it practical. And so that's in chapter 7 of the same book. And then there's another book we have on Safari Books Online for you. And there's a link in the Read and View section for this. And it's called Begin with the Basics, the What and Where of Entertainment Marketing. It's by people named Esgate and Lieberman. And again, this is chapter 1, where we're giving you sort of a foundational view of, what entertainment marketing is about and what are the kinds of things that we might measure in entertainment marketing. And so as a sub-bullet here, I've made a note that says the 4 C's of the entertainment industry are included in this chapter 1. And you'll see why later. I'm going to refer to this 4 C's again later in our presentation tonight. You'll see why this is important and why I've pointed this out. So this is where, when we get there, this is where you'll find the 4 C's of the entertainment industry here in Esgate and Lieberman, chapter 1. All right, so then there are some videos on audience measurement and the internet that are posted in the Read and View section as well. And then a very important thing in week 1 here is at the end of the Read and View section at the bottom, there is a recorded lecture actually by the instructor who taught this course before I did. And she talks about why we measure audiences. And it's a very important lecture, and you'll find that if you listen to that lecture, I think the quiz will go much better for you. So pay attention to that lecture. It's largely based on our readings and our videos, but she brings some really good radio. Her background is in radio, and she brings that kind of experience to her lecture. And so I hope you find that really helpful, and I think you will if you listen to it before you take that quiz. All right, so we'll talk about when all that stuff is due later on. But that's kind of an overview of what we want to establish this week here. And so let's go ahead and talk about the discussion for this week. I'm going to blow this up a little bit so we can read it a little better. So here's our discussion on measuring audiences. And it says, by way of overview, it says in the entertainment industry, gathering an audience and measuring that audience can determine the success of a project. Most people have heard of TV ratings and box office results, but what do you know about them? In this week's discussion board, we'll learn more about the how and why audiences are measured and share these ideas with our classmates. So before your initial post, we want you to watch this video that we've posted. Now, this video is posted, I think, in the Read and View section, as well as here. When you open this document, the discussion document, you'll find a live link here in it as well. And so you can just click on this link. This is a video called How We Measure an Audience by a man named John Hess. It's about 20 minutes long. And it's, in my opinion, quite a good overview of different ways that we measure audiences for different areas of the entertainment industry. So I think you'll find it pretty helpful and interesting. And then we want you to share your thoughts about the video and some of the questions below. Now, when I say some of the questions, what I mean is I want you to pick at least 2 of these questions. Okay, there are 4 of them here. You're welcome to answer them all in your initial post if you like, but I'm only requiring you to pick 2. You should answer each one in about a paragraph. So that means your answer should be, somewhat thorough, 3 or 4 questions, or 3 or 4 sentences in answering any of these questions. So the first one is, what do you think are some of the most important ideas that were presented in the video? Next, did the presenter in the video make you aware of anything that you did not know prior to viewing it? What was it? And please explain. Okay, what was it? What was new? Why was that new to you? What did you think about it? Next, based on this video, what would you like to understand more about regarding audience measurement? Okay, so there may be things you want to drill into deeper and understand deeper about these topics. And then finally, what other experiences with audience metrics or media ratings have you heard of from videos, websites, professional contacts, or other sources? If you have, or if you want to do a little research, you're certainly welcome to do that, and you can share some of those resources with the rest of us. All right, so then there's a note that says research is not required, but if you represent the thoughts, ideas, words, or images of others, be sure to give credit and cite your sources by indicating the author, date, title, and a website link where the information was found. So make sure that if you do some research, and when you answer these questions, just cite the sources that you use so that we know, what sources informed your thoughts about this video. All right, so that's our initial post. It's due by Wednesday night, which is tomorrow night. The response post is due by the end of the class week, and we only require you to respond to one classmate's post, but we want you to respond fully by using the RISE model. Okay, so don't limit your reply to, I agree and here's why, great point and here's why, good post and here's why. We want you to go beyond that. We want you to take the discussion to a higher level by either suggesting a new way of looking at the topic, something that you are bringing into the discussion that has not been said yet, or asking an open-ended question that makes us think more deeply about it, or takes the discussion to a higher level, and extends the learning. And that's what the RISE model does. So if you need a refresher on the RISE model, risemodel.com is very helpful. Okay, so that's our discussion here for week 1. If you have questions, make sure you contact me and let me know. So let's talk about our project for this week, and let me blow this up so we can read it. Okay, so our project is on audience metrics terms. And again, so terminology is an important part of what we want to learn in week 1. And so here's the setup, the overview. It says there are many new concepts and terms we need to become familiar with as we learn about how audiences are researched and measured. There are varieties of audiences and measurements across different areas of the entertainment industry. The measures and terms are different for radio, TV, music, events, and web properties. So for this project, you'll learn about a variety of measurement scenarios in the entertainment business and analyze how those metrics are used. What you'll need, obviously, your laptop. There is a download in the project section for week 1 called Media Metrics Definitions List. I'm going to show you that right now. So here it is. It's just a a PDF document. You can see at the top it says this is page 1 out of 6. So this is 6 pages of terms and definitions in the area of media and audience metrics and audience measurement. And so we go from ad networks and advertising weight and Arbitron to to the 6th page and share and social network and word of mouth and total ratings points. Okay, so 6 pages of terms here that we want you to get some familiarity with. Okay, we're not going to require you to memorize these, but we think you should be familiar so that when you read about them, it won't be the first time that you've seen this. So you'll need your laptop, you'll need this list of definitions, and you'll obviously need internet for connecting to some sources. And speaking of sources, under Prepare here on the right side of the page, we've given you 4 articles, actually 3 articles and a video for you to read and view before you prepare your deliverable here. So let me just quickly go over these 4. So the first one is called 9 Ways Musicians Actually Make Money Today. This is from Rolling Stone magazine from about 5 years ago. The next one is on the NFL. NFL takes aim at $25 billion, but at what price? This is from USA Today Sports from about 3 years ago. The next is what are an artist's metrics for success in the digital age? This is from a music industry blog by a guy named Mark Mulligan, who has been in the music industry for many, many years. And then finally, there's a video called Radio 101, Daypart Reach and Frequency. This is by a company called Rainstorm Media Group, which is kind of an advertising group that focuses a lot on radio. And they explain some things about how radio is measured. So here we have, music, we have sports, we have other types of artists in the digital world, and we have radio. And so we want you to review all 4 of these in order to prepare for what you're going to create here. So if we go to the next page, here's what we want you to create. It says create either a Word document, at least 4 paragraphs, or a keynote or PowerPoint presentation with presenter notes or audio narration. Okay, so that's 5 to 10 slides, including the title and the references slide. And before we talk about what you're going to do with this, I just want to say, I think sometimes people choose to do a presentation because it sounds like less writing. Well, it's certainly not less detail than writing a paper, because you can't just do slides here. I'm not going to accept slides only. What you have to do is, if you're going to do the presentation, you should put images on your slides, you should put bullet points on your slides, but the details of what you would be talking about if you were giving this presentation, the details should be in the presenter notes. Your presenter notes should be detailed. Or you should record your voice walking us through the presentation in detail. So you go from slide to slide and tell us in detail, what that slide is about. So don't hand in a presentation that doesn't have either detailed presenter notes or a complete audio narration of you, your voice narrating the presentation for us. All right. And an alternative is to do a Word document, which would mean, you're going to write your details in that paper, and it has to be at least 4 paragraphs, because there are 4 kind of main questions we're going to ask you here. Excuse me. So we want you to, after having read those 3 articles and watched that video on the previous page, we want you to select one of them, either one of the articles or that video about radio. We want you to select one of those, list the name of the article or the video that you selected, and respond to all of the following. So there's 4 things here to respond to. That's why it's a minimum of 4 paragraphs. You'd have to write at least a paragraph on each one to answer each one of these bullets. First one is define the audience being measured. So pay close attention to this as I talk about it, because this is an area where sometimes students get confused about what we're asking for. So listen carefully. Define the audience being measured. Okay, so you're going to define the audience. Now, in some of these articles or in the video, there are multiple audiences being discussed. So if you choose, for instance, 9 ways that musicians can make money today, sounds like there's going to be a lot of different audiences that are going to either be described or implied in that article. So, here, in order to answer bullet 1, define the audience being measured. Is it listeners? Is it viewers? Is it ticket buyers? Is it merchandise buyers? There are other audiences that are either described or implied in some of these articles. So be careful to think about what audience are they talking about that would need to be measured. Okay, what is the audience that's being measured? Is it listeners, viewers, etc.? Next, what measurement was used to measure? Well, it says the results, but really to measure these audiences. So, and that's different from number 1. So we want you to tell us what the audience is that's being measured. Now in number 2, what is the measurement? And so the measurement can be how many people watched, right? How many viewers? That's a measurement. How many dollars were generated? That's a measurement, okay? How many page views, unique page views, okay? That's a measurement, all right? So define the audience first, then define how that audience is being measured. What is the measurement of that audience? Next, does the measurement seem credible? Why or why not? Okay, so if the measurement is how many people viewed a YouTube video, is the measurement of that a credible measurement? Is it, credible in terms of, is it really measuring the right things? As opposed to how many people listened to a radio show. Okay, that's measured in a very different way, right? And so is that measurement credible? All right, why or why not? Okay, so we want the audience being measured. We want what is the actual measurement that's being used, and then is that measurement credible? And then finally, what are your thoughts about the article or the video? Is the situation described good for artists? Or is it good for media outlets? Or is it good for audiences? Or is it good for all of these or none of these? Okay. And then explain your conclusions. So I want some sort of general thoughts about the article or the video, but we also want you to talk about how the situation is for artists, how the situation that's talked about in the article, how is that for media outlets? How is it for audiences? Is it positive for them? Is it negative for them? Is the situation negative for the artists but positive for the media outlets? So whatever your thoughts are on the article or the video that you chose, we want you to sort of summarize those and then explain your conclusions about who wins and who loses. Okay, so that's the 4 things. In your writing, whenever you use a term from the media metrics definition list that I showed you earlier, we want you to put that term in bold type. Okay, so throughout your paper or throughout your presentation deck, and including your presenter notes, you should make sure that any terms that you use from that definition list are in bold type so that they stand out and I can see them. All right? Okay, that's our project for week 1. Let me just add this bonus question. Now, I do this, for one thing, to invite classmates to attend this session if they can, or at least to listen to the recording later in the week, because I don't announce this bonus question in any other place in our class. It's not on the LAO. It's not in my welcome statement. It's not in the assignment for the week. The only place you find out about it is here in this session. And I do this every week, so there will be one for each week. So this week's bonus points, and I'm offering up to 7 points that could be added to your score on this project if you can answer, this question completely and accurately. And 7 points can make the difference between essentially, a B and an A minus, or a B plus and a full A. And so, or a C and a B minus. Okay, so it can make a difference on your grade on the project, and it's worth looking into. I try not to make it too burdensome, but it can help. So here I say, name and briefly describe in your own words the 4 C's of the entertainment industry. So you may remember earlier in this session, I pointed out where you could find the 4 C's of the entertainment industry in one of our readings. And I want you to read about the 4 C's, but I want you to describe them in your own words. So read about them, learn about them, understand what they are, and then tell me in your own words what the 4 C's mean. All right? Answer those completely and accurately, and I will add up to 7 points to your score on the project. Okay? All right, so I'm going to summarize now the deliverables for this week. Here we are in week 1. It's good to get a good, strong start. And so my first deliverable here really isn't a deliverable, I confess. That I always put my first bullet is, don't forget to do the readings and watch the videos and watch the lecture, the recorded lecture there in week 1 in the read and view section. It's very important to the rest of your success this week, especially on the project and on the quiz. So make sure you're reading those and watching videos and absorbing what we put up for you. And then the discussion post, the first one, of course, is due by Wednesday night before midnight. The second one by Sunday night. Let me say this, by the way. This is a unique week because this month's class started on a Tuesday because Monday was a holiday, and we didn't start this month's course on Monday like we usually do. And so I'm going to allow initial posts to be put in later than Wednesday. I won't penalize initial posts this week if they're after Wednesday. But I would love it if you would do it earlier in the week. So the first one is normally due by Wednesday, but this week I'm going to have some forgiveness on that. The second one, the response post, is due by Sunday, and there is no forgiveness for late ones there. In fact, I won't accept late response posts at all. So make sure that one's in by Sunday night. The assignment or the project on audience metrics terms is due by Sunday night before midnight. And don't forget to add your answer to the bonus question in order to sort of maximize your score here. And then the week 1 quiz is due also by the end of the class week. Just a quick cautionary note for those who have taken this course previously and are returning to it again. You're not allowed to use your deliverables from the last time to submit them for this time. You have to do new ones, or you have to substantially, change, improve, and correct your previous work in order to submit it for this class. If you have questions about that, please ask me, but it is an academic violation to use something that you turned in previously for credit and try to get credit for it again. So even though you are back in this class, you cannot use those old deliverables for this one. All right, so ask me if you have questions on that. Let me open for questions and just see if there's any questions that are prepared before I let you go. And while I'm waiting to see if there's questions, let me remind you how to contact me outside of this session. And so here's my email address. My office phone is there. It actually forwards to my cell phone. So even if I'm not in the office, you try to call me, it will forward to my cell phone, and I will sometimes pick it up, depending on what's happening around me. But leave a message, and I will contact you as soon as I can. You can message me through the LAO platform. My office hours outside of normal school hours are Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Sunday afternoons, and the times you see there are all Pacific times. I'm available outside of those times by appointment, so if we need to talk, if we need to, if you need clarification on something, if you have a question, if you have a suggestion, you can make an appointment. Let's get on the phone, or we can get on a go-to-training session just between the two of us, or we can get on Skype, or whatever we need to do. I want to be available to help you to do your best here this term. So, contact me and let me know. All right, so I don't see any questions out there, so I'm going to sign off, but I just want to say, don't hesitate to, contact me if you need something. So thank you. Thank you to those who are here live on the session. Thank you for attending this live session. Or for those who are listening by way of the recording, thank you for listening to this. I hope I hope this helps you, and I wish you all the best as you work on this week's initial learning activities. All right. Good night.